Okay, for this session, these are the learning outcomes. Basically, we'll define what is digital architecture. Then we'll take a look at how digital architecture links from your digital strategy to execution. Then we'll also be taking a look at a digital architecture framework to enable your digital transformation. For this session, we also hope to impart to the audience, right, the importance of architecture, thinking, and mindset when you embark on your digital transformation journey. So these are the learning outcomes for this session. So in this digital age, why are some internet retailers able to make crucial changes to their e-commerce website in hours, while it takes brick and mortar retailers 3 months or more to do the same? And in this world of servitization, where your manufactured products come with digital service attached to them, how come a few car manufacturers can rapidly make online updates to their products in the field, be it pushing down new features to their infotainment systems or tuning the engine performance? And how is the new wave of cloud-based enterprise software vendors able to make software updates to their products in days or weeks rather than months it takes traditional enterprise software vendors to do so? Are your architecture practices still anchored or living in the past, with the inward-looking view focusing on your internal problems and having tightly coupled business applications, your ERP, your CRM, where you change one part of the system and then it impacts many other parts? And it takes forever to push new features, right, to your customers. And are your IT infrastructure services still centrally managed by an independent team, right? After you develop your systems, then it takes weeks or months, right, to pass them over to production before the systems is finally launched to your customers. Are your ICT technology still costly to implement? So are your architecture practices still anchored in the past? And worse still, if you don't do any architecture, right? You have all these silos within your organization. Your business processes are not standardized. They are fragmented, right? And they are duplicated. Then for your data, you don't have a single unified view of customer information, product information. Your application portfolios are also not optimized, right? They're also not rationalized. So you have duplicate applications supporting the same business process or functionality. And your technology platforms are also diverse, right? There are no standards. So you have all these silos. So how are you going to compete in this digital age with all the digital natives, right? They don't have any legacy systems to connect to. They can implement greenfield digital business process, as well as launch new digital systems quickly. So in this era of digitalization, product servitization, and dramatically reduced software releases, how are you going to compete with all these digital natives? So today, every business is a digital enterprise. And this is actually exacerbated by the current COVID situation, where you are forced to go online, right, and launch your digital business. And the digital enterprise is about applying digital technology to adapt or change the strategy of your enterprise to the products, right, the digital service that you market to your customers, or maybe even to reimagine your business. And also to provide good customer experience, right, that they want to transact repeatedly, right, with your organization. Digital enterprise is also about using digital technology, right, to optimize your operating model so that it's effective and efficient. So if you look at the traditional transformation compared to the digital transformation, basically you will see that digital transformation is customer-led. The focus is on the customer, the experience, the full end-to-end journey, right? The customer experience with your organizations when they transact with your company. And then digital transformation is also insights-driven, using data, right? All decisions are based on facts, based on data. Digital transformation is also fast and connected, right, compared to the traditional kind of transformation. From our observations, most digital transformations are like this, right, that you see on this chart here. Once the company formulate their digital transformation strategy, then they will go into execution, all the projects, right? Digital design, development, and deployment. So what is crucially missing here? What is crucially missing here? The missing piece is this very important piece. It's your digital architecture piece, right? That links your digital strategy all the way to the execution of your projects. So this is a very important piece that we see missing in most transformations. So let's define digital architecture. What is digital architecture? Digital architecture is the design of digital solutions through the application and integration of digital technologies to enable your organization's digital transformation so that you deliver value to your customers. And the real essence of digital architecture lies in the way it approaches to problems. Basically, digital architecture redefines the solution design process and shifts the focus from inward-looking focus on the problem to outside in to the customer experience. In addition, a well-thought-out digital architecture will guide the gradual introduction of digital solutions and technologies into your enterprise to enable your digital transformation. So a picture paints 1,000 words. So if you look at this picture down here, digital architecture is the design of digital platforms or digital solutions that you see on the right. And then, if you're a large enterprise like MNC, digital architecture must also define how are you going to integrate, right, to exchange data from your pool data and exchange data with your existing operational backbone. So digital architecture covers the digital platform design, digital solution design, and also the linkages back to your operational backbone. This is a sample digital reference architecture of a company, right? So basically, you will see in this diagram how the existing technology capabilities must work together with the digital capabilities collaboratively to drive digital. And this is actually achieved by your digital architecture. For example, if you want to introduce, right, omni-channel for your customers, what are the digital architecture you need to define to support omni-channel? How does it integrate back to your existing data, existing systems? Or maybe if you go towards the cloud, move some of your workloads to the cloud, and then you also have on-premise system, your digital architecture should define, right, the integration methods to the cloud. So what are the key main architecture domains in digital architecture? As you can see from this diagram, a very important piece is your business architecture. Your digital strategy will define the what. your company wants to achieve the outcomes. Business architecture will define how are you going to achieve your digital strategy. Another important piece is your data architecture, your application architecture, your technology architecture, and also your security architecture. So these are the main architecture domains in digital architecture. I will not be able to go into all the details for each of the architecture for this session. So I will just highlight some of the key points, key aspects for each of the architectures in the next few slides. So for business architecture, basically you want to define how, right, the design of your business architecture to support your digital strategy. So business architecture will be looking at the digital products, digital services, right, that you sell to your customers. And another important aspect of the business architecture is to define the business capabilities that you need to enable your organization's digital transformation. And the business architecture is actually a very important domain because it forms the foundation for the rest of the other architectures, like your data architecture, your application architecture, and your technology architecture. Your business architecture will also need to define what's your digital business model, as you see in this chart here, right? In terms of the y-axis, how well do you know your customers? And in terms of the x-axis, how much control do you have over your ecosystem or your value chain? So are you a supplier, like some of the consumer product companies? They mainly sell through retailers. Or are you, for example, an ecosystem driver like Amazon, where you know your customers very well, and then you also have the digital platform where you bring all your suppliers, your partners together to sell to your customers. So you have to define your digital business model, and this will actually forms the foundation that drives your other architectures. Another aspect of your business architecture is defining the business capabilities that you need to develop to support your digital strategy. So this is an example business capability map of the existing capabilities and also the new business capabilities that you want to develop to support your digital strategy. So for example, if you have like a business capabilities like you want to deliver personalized customer experience, so it will actually define, right, what are the capabilities that you need to put in place to support this personalized customer experience. And this business capability map will actually be used, right, to drive your other architectures, like for example, to support personalized customer experience. How should your data architecture be designed to support this capability of having personalized customer experience? And what are the application components or services that you have to put in to support this capability of having personalized customer experience? So this business capability map will be the foundation, right, to drive the design of your other architectures. So data architecture, once you have defined your digital business model, data architecture, one aspect is to look at the data strategy that you want to deploy to support your digital transformation. So if you can see from here, right, your data strategy could be, for example, offensive strategy. If you're like retailers, your environment is less regulated and is very competitive. Or your data strategy could be, for example, defense, right? Let's say you are in hospitals where the hospitals operate in highly regulated environment and maybe not that competitive, right? Or maybe a hybrid data strategy like the banks, right? They operate in heavily regulated industry and it's also very competitive. So the data architecture, you have to think through the data strategy that you want to deploy to support your organization's digital transformation. Another aspect of data architecture is to move towards a data-driven organization where you recognize that data is actually a strategic business asset. And then all your decisions will be fact-based, driven by data, and no longer based on someone's gut feeling or experience. So data architecture, one aspect, another aspect is to move towards data-driven organization. And all this will be linked to your application architecture, where you look at the portfolio of applications that you have right within your organization, then you try to rationalize and transform some of these applications to support your digital transformation initiatives. So one way to categorize your applications could be, for example, like the paste layer architecture that you see on the slide, right? Systems of record are applications that are generally more stable. These are like your transactional systems or your master data, customer data, product data kind of systems. Systems of differentiation, this class of applications provide a competitive advantage to your organization. So you really want to take care of this class of systems of differentiation applications. Systems of innovation are the faster changing, right, kinds of customer or more exploratory, innovative kind of applications where you explore how digital technologies like IoT, robotics, right, could help your organization in your digital transformation journey. So your application architecture will be looking at the portfolio of applications and how do you modernize, right, or extend your legacy architectures to support your digital transformation. Another aspect of application architecture could also be looking at open and agile architectures. So application agility is another important aspect covered by application architecture. So how do you decide, right, which applications you need to develop with more agile development methods, and which applications can you use DevOps, right, to automate so that you deliver features to your customers in a shorter, faster release kind of cycles. All this will be connected to your technology architecture. So technology architecture, one aspect will be looking at the digital technologies that you want to introduce to support your digital transformation, and then potentially also defining some standards for these digital technologies. Your technology architecture will also cover, for example, like having a cloud-first strategy. What are some of the workloads that you can move to the cloud? It's better being performed by the cloud. And what are some of the systems you still want to keep on premises because you want to have control over your systems and your data? Another aspect of technology architecture, let's say if you have a hybrid IT strategy of some systems on-premise because you want to have control, some workloads, some systems you move to the cloud, then you need to define your integration strategy, right, for the different scenarios and the different use case. What methods do you need? What methods do you use to integrate between your cloud systems and also your on-premise systems? Or maybe even if you use multi-cloud, right? So all this will be covered by the technology architecture. And security is also an important architecture to consider, because with all this proliferation of digital device, connected device like your IoT, right? So your organization's boundary perimeter, now it's hard to define. Where does your organization perimeter start and where does it end? Right? So you have to really design security as you develop each of the architecture, you also have to architect security across your organization to support your transformation. So this is an example digital architecture framework that links from your digital strategy, the top part, right, down to the projects, initiatives that you execute. So you can see from this framework, right, after you define your digital strategy, which is the what part, you have to define how are we going to achieve our strategy. So the digital architecture piece will cover things like the digital capabilities that you want to develop to support your digital transformation. For example, like the business capability map, and also the digital operating model, and the various architectures within the digital architecture, and also the digital roadmap, right, that tells you what are the business capabilities that you want to build, the digital capabilities, and also how do you execute all these different projects, their interdependencies. The digital roadmap will also define, for example, highlight some of the common architecture building blocks, like some of the business building blocks that you can share across your enterprise, some of the shareable application services, shareable data, like your customer data, your product data, and also the standardized technology. So what are your digital architecture design objectives? Basically, your digital architecture must be able to enable your enterprise to drive successful digital strategies and transformation. Your digital architecture must also have the ability to embrace, flex, right, to accommodate current and also emerging digital technologies. And your digital architecture must also be able to integrate, right, provide the integration back to your existing IT assets and systems where you want to interoperate and also to exchange data. So these are the design objectives for your digital architecture. And for the key characteristics of digital architecture, as we mentioned earlier, the focus is on customer centricity, right? You want to provide a good experience of customers transacting with your organization, that they want to come back, right, to do repeat business with your organization. And another key characteristic of digital architecture is about collaborative design between all the stakeholders within the enterprise, business, IT, and other stakeholders. Another key characteristic of digital architecture is about speed governance. You also want to govern your architecture. So it's a delicate balance between two tight control kind of governance for your architecture, where you stifle innovation. Your digital transformation initiative is supposed to be innovative, right? Yeah. So you don't want to stifle the innovation, or having no control, right? Where you don't do any architecture, and then it's like your organization has a spaghetti architecture. Another characteristic of digital architecture is about how do we design the architecture to be able to evolve, right, as the requirements change, business needs change. And then how are we able to design the digital architecture to incorporate some of the new digital technologies, like, for example, AI, robotics, Internet of Things, right? And then integrating back to your existing architecture. And why is digital architecture important? As we covered earlier, you need to design agility into your systems, right? And then digital architecture provides the alignment, right, and connection from your digital strategies down to the architecture, to the execution. And digital architecture provides effective coordination, linkages amongst the various architecture. And then you can see how is the business architecture linked to your data architecture, how is your application architecture supporting your business architecture, and eventually down to your technology architecture. You have the traceability and the linkages. And the digital architecture also provides an integrated roadmap, right, of all the business capabilities that you want to develop, and also the digital technologies that you want to put in place to support your organization's digital transformation. So digital architecture describes coherence, right, amongst all the various architectures that you see on this chart here. It also describes the linkages. How is the business architecture linked to your information or your data architecture? How is it linked to your application architecture? How is your TA, technical architecture, supporting your data and also your application architecture? So it describes coherence. And if you have done digital architecture, you will have what we call this traceability, right? That you see on this chart of your customers coming in, touching your lines of business, and then your data, your applications, and also your technologies. You have what we call the traceability and the line of sight. So in summary, for this session, I have covered just the bare basics, right, of digital architecture. And I have also defined what is digital architecture, how does it link from your digital strategy and transformation to your execution. We have also covered the design objectives and characteristics of digital architecture, and also look at the digital architecture framework to enable your organization's digital transformation. Hopefully, you will also take away from this session the importance of having architecture thinking and mindset when you embark on your digital transformation journey. For more details, we have this professional certificate in mastering digital architecture. You can actually scan the QR code and then go to the website for more information. This 6-day course will cover more details, right, on digital architecture. What I've just covered today for this session is just touching the surface, right? So that's all for my session. I think we can take some questions now. So there's a question from this participant asking on which digital architecture standard is the best? Is TOGAF be used in total or a mix hybrid of TOGAF, FEAF, which is the best practice? I think if you talk about enterprise architecture, then TOGAF is the de facto standard for enterprise architecture. So TOGAF, I would say, is the better standard for doing enterprise architecture. Yes, the slides will be shared with the attendees after you fill up the feedback. Then we'll send you a link to download the slides as well as the recorded session. Another participant asks, do you take the same approach if the decision is to buy packages? Well, if the decision is to buy packages, I think you still need to design and design your architecture, right? Whether you buy commercial off-the-shelf packages, you still need to define and own the architecture piece within your enterprise. Can flash the QR code for the course. Okay, so this is the QR code for the course. Okay, another question is, with the data model not defined leading to high cost and time in integration, is Microsoft UDM the solution, unified data model? With the data model not defined leading to high cost and time to integration, is Microsoft UDM the solution? Well, I think for this session, I will not mention any products, right? So yeah, so you really have to look at your requirements, and then you have to look at your data architecture requirements. After you define your data architecture, then you have to, the building blocks, right? The architecture building blocks and the solution building blocks, then you evaluate the solutions. Like what sort of data requirements, functional, non-functional, do you require before we actually select the products? Okay. So I think those are the questions that we have for this session. Right? Okay, good. Thank you.